All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. I guess, we finally got it set up, and we've decided to call it the Parishscope. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I say we've decided. I made the title, and I just pushed it on there. So, Casey, I hope that's okay.
That's okay. I just don't know how to spell it, so I do have to figure out how to find
it. We'll have to figure that out. But, yeah, no, I just figured, since that's like the newsletter name and everything else. So anyway, yeah, so we're going to call this thing the Parishscope. And I mean, I know that's not like New Age or anything, but it is our newsletter for the church, so it kind of works, I think. So, anyway, welcome to this this podcast. We are live on iTunes, or at least on Apple Podcast and on Google Podcast, so super excited about that. Took a little finagling. Apparently, Apple has an issue with pictures. Like, you got to have, you've got to be so precise with that picture. Like, they're crazy precise. So we got it. I finally got all the pixels lined up, and everything works, and Apple is happy, so I'm happy. So that's that's where that is. So we like to kind of begin our podcast, at least we did the last time, and we're going to we're still kind of feeling this out, seeing kind of what's good, what's bad, how it all works. But we're going to kind of start by just kind of doing this idea of current events, kind of looking at some news stories. And, each of us are going to try to bring a story each week to the table, just kind of see exactly where things go and how exactly things are. And so yeah, that's what we're going to do right now. And so I'll actually start with my story.
That sounds great.
And I'll start with my story, and then I'll actually let Casey talk for a change.
There's definitely some anxiety and nervousness as to what level of story we are dealing with, because if yours is really extreme and mine's like, there was a puppy at the zoo this week. Well, that's not it. But
so here's the thing. My story this week, I think is. Well, actually, I don't know. Is it lighter or is it not? I don't know if it is or not. But I'm going to bring it up, and
let's get into it and see.
Man, we're going to get into it. So I've been reading a lot about The Sound of Freedom.
Okay.
Have you heard about The Sound of Freedom?
No.
So The Sound of Freedom is a movie that Angel Studios put out. And it has, and I'm going to mispronounce this guy's name. He was the guy who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. His name is Jim Caviezel. I think that's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, but so they made this movie about this gentleman who ultimately gave up his job with the State Department in order to help stop sex trafficking of children.
Okay.
So, I mean, on the one hand, it's about a movie, so that's a kind of a lighter topic. On the other hand, it's about child sex trafficking. So it's like, well, that's a pretty heavy topic.
We're jumping in deep.
That's jumping in deep.
Yes.
But what's really interesting, and I've read kind of both sides, I read quite a bit about this actually earlier today, is a lot of, just like everything in our culture right now, it seems like everything is split around party lines or political lines, and you'd think like, oh, okay, this is a movie about stopping child sex trafficking. That's a good thing, right? Well, no. Apparently, they're saying that there's ties to the conspiracy theory group, QAnon. Yeah, is that right?
I don't.
I think so.
I don't know, but
somebody
I looked up who played Jesus.
Yeah, Caviezel. Yeah, Jim Caviezel. Okay, and if I'm pronouncing that wrong, get over it. No, I'm joking. You can always email me like, Pastor Chris, you mispronounced his name, and that's okay. I'm okay with that, because you know what? I fully admit I don't know how to pronounce a guy's name very well. But the point of the matter is this: like, it leads to a lot of questions. Because there's a lot of movies that have come out over the years that even for Christians, some of them have been uncomfortable to watch. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean they're bad to watch. And, this movie, this movie, I don't think it really has any ties to those conspiracy theories. Some people have suggested that actor Caviezel has some ties in with some conspiracy theorists and other stuff like that. And even if that's true, from what I understand, and I openly admit I have not seen this movie yet. I'm actually going to tell you, I kind of want to see it now. Mm-hmm. But I think the important thing is like it becomes this question of like, should we watch it? Should we not watch it? And on top of that, we got to I think we need to have a little discussion about some of the political divide in terms of it is kind of stopping us from doing good things.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, even if there's a conspiracy theory out there, are we actually going to say we disagree with stopping or trying to stop child sex trafficking? I mean,
right.
To me, that's kind of the bigger point.
Yeah. Besides what party is funding the film or who's it should be about. I mean, I think we can all agree that we don't want that to be in the world. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's kind of exactly what I was thinking. I mean, and I always say, like, this is coming from a guy, like, let's be honest, and I know some people will be surprised, some people will not, but I don't actually like a lot of Christian cinema.
No.
I know, right? It's terrible. I mean, it's true. I'm a pastor, but I just don't, and I'm not, look, I know some of you out there, if there's people listening. But like, I just know that somebody out there's gonna be like, no, pastor, you have to, it's like, but here's the thing: there's so much Christian cinema that's done so terrible that and I'll be honest, it becomes cheesy and fake,
right?
And that's where it gets me when it becomes so cheesy and so fake. Like,
well, there is. I mean, I don't know if this is going in the wrong direction, but there is a craft to making films, writing films properly, acting in films, and when a lot of that is more like, for me, because there's a lot of those films I'm not crazy about, and it actually makes me like as I watch any of those, and then there's like really bad acting in it.
Yes.
I start to cringe really bad because it's just it's like, okay,
it's
I know what
good.
they're trying to do, but it's not coming off well, and it just sounds really awkward and just
absolutely. I mean, and it's one of those things. Like, now that's not saying that all Christian cinema is bad. Some of it is good.
Some of it's good. Tales, some big hit.
About the only thing I really actually despise worse than cheesy acting and terrible movie plot lines and everything else in like some of these cinema is whenever major Hollywood tries to capture a Christian theme and does it horribly wrong.
Like Noah with
yes,
Russell Crowe.
Like Noah with Russell Crowe. I mean, you want to talk about a train wreck like that? That movie just makes me cringe, and it's got great acting. It's just a terrible movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's got all the CGI and everything. It's just a terrible movie. Like, I watched that thing. I'm like, oh.
Have you ever seen the movie Samson?
I have not.
It was interesting. It's like, do you ever see the movie 300?
Yeah.
It's kind of an attempt at that style.
Okay.
Because it's an action film.
Yeah.
But it's Samson, so he's like super strong. It was okay. It was out of all the Christian cinema I've seen, it was the better of some.
And fair enough. Like, if you think about like Bible stories and the like, and you like, if you're gonna choose one that really doesn't quite, I mean, like, he is a judge, right? It's in the book of Judges, the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson is not necessarily a great guy. I mean, I think that's one of the things that makes him as a story intriguing because, God gives him this great gift and he is the judge of Israel, and yet he's kind of an awful person, really. I mean, he terrorizes the Philistines, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's like he doesn't do it because he's like, oh, I am going to be righteous before the Lord. No, it's like he does it because he gets upset, and like he's like, I'm going to tear their gates off and run around. I'm like, okay.
And that's why it's the better of the Christian films.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But one of the big things about this story, the Sound of Freedom, is that, didn't take a whole lot to produce and make. I mean, obviously it took thousands and thousands of dollars, but compared to these $100-200 million Hollywood box office, not much. And yet it is, I think, still in third place. It was like in second place the week before, beat out Indiana Jones.
Whoa.
Beat out Indiana Jones. A lot of people are going to see this movie.
Wow.
And again, I think it's really well done from what I understand. Like I said, I'd like to go see it or maybe even just watch it even at home at some point. Probably not going to get the popcorn out for that one. It's probably not going to want to eat popcorn and watch that particular movie. But
unless you're an emotional eater, which I am. So if it's sad and depressing, I'll put as much butter as I can on that popcorn.
Okay.
But that's just to get through it emotionally.
Well, emotionally, I'm gonna have emotional ice cream. That's what I'm gonna have.
Yeah, I have. When you became a dad, did you start getting more emotional in movies or no? Like watching a movie?
Yes, I did. I did. I to this day, and I mean, again, I'm putting this out on the podcast. Who knows? But like, I actually struggle like in movies whenever like kids get harmed or hurt.
Yes.
Like there's just something about it. Like it's just wrong. Like I just
it's horrible. Yeah. It just I can't help but just you think about your own kids and then you just get very emotional. So I can't imagine that movie would be easy to watch.
No,
especially.
I would agree with that. I couldn't imagine it would be. Again, I need to see it. I think it's one of those movies that's probably good to watch. I have a feeling it's hard to watch. I mean, again, I don't think it's going to be easy. But again, I mean, even if we're going to say, hey, we don't buy into the conspiracy theory nonsense, human sex trafficking is a thing, and it is happening, whether we want it to be or not.
Yeah.
And it needs to kind of we all want it to stop. We pray for it to stop.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there you go. There's my new story. There's my story. This story is going to beat out. This movie beat out all these other ones, and
that's pretty crazy. I mean, you'd think Indiana Jones, there'd be no way anything's beating that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just such a
Harrison Ford's getting older. I think.
The last one wasn't the
no,
best.
The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, see, now here comes the awkward part where it's like, does my story come into the right, I guess, headspace as yours?
Oh, it's all good. Let's bring it. Let's bring it on.
Well, one of the things I thought this was somewhat topical because it's current is there's been a lot of stories about how much the country has been starting to open up more and money has been flowing more, and very specifically because of Taylor Swift's tour. Because she's going to cities. She went to like Chicago.
Yeah.
And Chicago set a record for the most hotel rooms booked like in history.
Okay.
Because of her tour. Because she's such a massive star. And they only do shows like on the weekend. And I might be wrong about this, but I think they do like multiple shows. I might be wrong about that. I think they do multiple shows in one place. And so it's been a whole discussion how like the Federal Reserve is saying, money's actually like flowing again since COVID because people are going to these massive shows, and everywhere she goes, these like cities are starting to get huge tourism, which they've been pretty low on. And so it's pretty I thought it was interesting because Taylor Swift, definitely there's controversy and for certain people because she's had kind of a colorful career,
sure,
and all the things that's happened. But it's amazing that she has such a large impact in a positive way towards like these cities.
Yeah.
Whether you like her or dislike her, she's actually it is helping.
Well, and I mean, again, I think that's one of the things that's really interesting to talk, especially when you talk about Taylor Swift. It's like, and I don't know a lot about her personally. I mean, I hear she's what? I mean, I think the joke is always that she's been on for a lot of dates and lots of breakups and all that kind of stuff.
She's had a lot of celebrity relationships.
Yeah. And so that's always kind of the joke. But when you see Taylor Swift, one of the things that I personally don't think about is politics.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that like we're starting to see, is everything I feel like is so laced with politics. It's either one side of the fence or the other. Even the movie that I just mentioned, right? I mean, that's one of the things is like people went to the theater and they said, hey, this guy goes with this conspiracy theory and that's alt-right or whatever. And so now we can't watch this film. And it's like, well, if the film is still good, who cares? Who cares? Like if it's got a good message, but I think that's one of the things like this country as a whole is just yearning for something that's just not so laced with politics. Yeah. I mean, whenever you go see a baseball game and you have to see some people stand and some people kneel for the national anthem, and you gotta see, this political at play or this politic at play or, all this stuff, and then you think Taylor Swift, and I mean, we could joke around, and
right?
Say, but you don't think, oh, she's far right or oh, she's far left. You just think
some people might, but
I'm sure
there are people who do. But I mean, she's a musician making, breakup songs or
right,
breakups, and not all songs are breakup songs, but
but a lot of them. But a lot of them.
But she's a musician. She's writing music and she's putting it out there,
and that's just it. Like I think that's the point that I'm kind of driving at is like,
right.
She just puts on a good show.
She does, undeniably. I mean, I'm not a gigantic Taylor Swift fan. I'm sure I would have a lot of fun at one of her shows.
Absolutely. I think she just puts on a good show. And, again, one of the things that I like to say, and one of the reasons that I think we decided to kind of talk about current events was because, one of the things I like to bring out is like, theology is everywhere. Mm-hmm. And even though we're talking about current events, and I mean, for crying out loud, we're talking about Taylor Swift right now.
Right.
The reality is that theology is still at play. I love this one example. There's a famous. Okay, so there's this famous saying that Luther never said. That's to say that Luther back in his day was so popular that a lot of people just said, "Oh yeah, Luther said that," and he didn't really. And this one of them, and I don't believe he actually said it, was like, Luther, somebody came up and asked him, said, "Luther, what would you do if the world was going to end tomorrow?" And he said, "I'd go plant an apple tree," or something like that, like cherry tree, apple tree, whatever it was.
Right.
The point was that Luther was making is like, the important thing isn't like that the world's going to end, but that God designed me in a certain way to do certain things, and I'm going to keep doing those things, even if I know that tomorrow is the end of the world. And there's another story, and I think this one actually did happen, where a shoemaker came to Luther and said, "Hey, look, I'm going to put these little small crosses on shoes, and it's going to be great, like evangelism."
Right.
And Luther said, "No, just make really good shoes." Like, and he's like, just do your job to the best of your ability, and trust me, that's going to shine.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we're seeing is I think Taylor Swift, and again, I'm not going to say I'm the biggest fan of Taylor Swift's. I will be honest, some of her songs are catchy. They are.
She knows how to write a tune.
She knows how to write a tune. But I'm not going to say I'm the biggest Taylor Swift fan, but I am going to say, but you can see by the numbers and by the people that gravitate towards her shows, and even we're talking here about like the economics, mm-hmm. She's quality. She's obviously got a quality that she can bring, this factor of entertainment that I think a lot of people are yearning for, that's not laced with politics.
Right.
If you go to her show, it doesn't mean that you're right-leaning or left-leaning or you're a bigot or this or whatever. It's like, you
just love singing "Teardrops on My Guitar." It's a great tune and still stood the test of time,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
And to rope it back around to what we were talking about before, I think that's why I don't enjoy a lot of Christian cinema, because some of it is not great. And I'm like, if you're going to make a movie, make the best movie you can. And when you kind of just cut corners like, they'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, that's what kills me. I just can't.
Well, yeah, and you got the whole other factor too, like the people that are like, well, they'll buy it because they don't want their kids watching this other stuff, and it's like, well, now it's just a money making scheme, right? Like,
Yeah, and it definitely there's definitely if you really research, there's definitely some of that out there.
Yeah, well, that's what happened to VeggieTales.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the guy's name. Phil.
Yes, Phil Van something. Let's see.
Yeah, but the guy who created VeggieTales really was a Christian, still is a Christian.
Vischer,
yeah, Phil Vischer. And he's still a good Christian, still is a good Christian.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Ended up selling the show, still comes in and did the voice for a long time. But ultimately sold the show, and the people that kind of own the show now is like more like they're just after making money.
Yeah,
and they've kind of watered down the message a lot.
Yeah, it's a little less Christian based.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I know there was an interview with him. Now that we're on VeggieTales, there was an interview with him where he said he really thought the plan for him from God was that he was going to be the Christian Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And so they expanded super fast. Like, we're doing great. We're making great content. People love it. And they expanded too fast. And then they, were in debt and they couldn't get out of it. And that's why he had to sell it.
Yeah.
So it's,
And he ended up going back and realizing that some of his theology was off too. And actually talked quite a bit about that. And I actually, that to me is like, I give him a lot of respect for that. Because, who does that? You know, like who comes back after having this incredibly popular thing and saying, yeah, I was maybe a little off on some of that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I give them kudos for that. I think that's awesome. I think that's very respectable.
But
so.
you can tell how hard they work. You know, I don't know, that show, you can tell how hard they worked on it. So
yes,
it definitely had the quality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, but nowadays I don't think VeggieTales is near as Christian. I think it's just more after the money.
And yeah, just a broader message of like, be a good person.
Yeah. All right, so we'll just kind of move on to our next segment.
What do you got for us today, Pastor Chris?
All right, now we're moving on. The next segment is again, we don't have fancy titles for most of these. Current events. This one's basics of the faith. The third one we call church chatter. I like that. We'll call it church chatter. We like it,
and we're really going to have to get some theme music for.
We do. We got to. I want to hit a button and have like stuff go, music. But this one's just kind of like basics of the faith or whatever. And one of the things like I was saying, there's just topics that kind of just erupt throughout the week, and I was going to kind of try to highlight some of those. To be honest with you, a couple different people have asked me this week about the large catechism of all things, and then I remember I don't know who I was talking to, but I talked to somebody a little bit just about the history of the catechism in general, and I find that fascinating because I think that's one of those things that is somewhat lost on us, like when we receive a catechism. And if you're Lutheran, especially if you're LCMS Lutheran, you receive this beautiful book, hardcover, with like 300 and some pages in it. When you turn the ripe old age of 7th grade, whatever age you happen to be, when you hit 7th grade, and you get this great book, and you look at it with wonder in your eyes, and you just tear up at its beauty, and then you set it on the shelf because it's boring, and and everybody thinks the same thing. I didn't get it. But it just made me think, like, we don't know a lot of the history of the small catechism, and so I wanted to take just a brief moment. Again, basics of the faith, right? Is
catechism, does that stand for something specifically?
It does. It does.
Because you say catechism, and I'm not quite sure what that technically means.
Yeah. So, catechism quite literally means to speak back. That's kind of like a literal translation, if you will. It means to speak back. And it was used as a teaching tool, specifically in the medieval world, but even earlier than that, they'd have different versions of what they called the catechism. It kind of comes out of a movement in the very early church, like the 4th, 5th century, called the catechumenate, right? There's a mouthful for you.
Catechumenate.
Oh, man. Yeah, right? Yeah. It's oh, man. That, like I tell people, like that's your big word for the day, right? There you go. Now you got a word to go tell your friends. Fit that into a conversation, and then everybody will be like super impressed. They'll be like, wow, you've been studying. You'd be like, yeah, I hit the books. I hit the catechism. But no, yeah, catechism literally means to speak back. Now, it has a much longer history. In the early church, it was left up to the parents to teach the kids, and that was just the job of the parents. And in fact, from the biblical standpoint, that's very much in line with Scripture, right? It is the parents' job to raise kids up in the faith, to teach them the faith. But over time, churches almost became like schools to a certain degree. Kids would come and they'd learn to a lot of times read and write.
Was that the original thought of Sunday school, or no?
No, okay. So Sunday school actually didn't happen until much later. Think about early to mid 1800s.
Okay.
And it was actually done, and I forget the name of the gentleman that started it, but basically the church was right next to an orphanage.
Okay.
And he noticed that the orphans didn't have parents. And so he decided to start Sunday school as a way to help teach the orphans the faith, because they didn't have mommy and daddy to do it for them.
To instruct them on the faith.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there, much later forming, but same idea in terms of principle. But slowly, again, the church kind of started taking over the role of teaching the faith. Believe it or not, Luther was actually against confirmation, which most Lutherans don't realize. It was a guy by the name of Philip Melanchthon, a guy who worked really close with Luther, that kind of said, no, you don't want to kind of get rid of it. Now, confirmation is that you were baptized as an infant, you were raised in the faith, and in confirmation, you were kind of making an oath that basically showed that you were confirming the faith that you received in your baptism.
Gotcha.
And so that was the whole point of confirmation, is you are confirming your faith. And we did this through a form of instruction called catechesis, or from the catechism, to speak back. And so this is kind of like, again, where all of this kind of comes from. Luther was not a big fan. He kind of thought that the parents needed to do it again. He's like, yeah, send it back to the parents. Melanchthon was kind of like, no, let's hold off. And there was more to it than that. I mean, again, I always got to add that caveat, right? Anytime I'm doing this, like I am oversimplifying to the nth degree.
But I appreciate that because it's understandable.
Yeah.
To me, which some people would go very, very in depth and lose me at catechumen and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just say that because I've been on YouTube before, right? I've seen the comments.
Right.
I know how the comment section is.
Yes.
Like, that's not quite how it happened. I'm like, oh, okay.
All right.
Like, yeah. So just like, yeah, I'm oversimplifying. I know I'm oversimplifying, but, hey, we're telling a story here. It's story time with Pastor Chris.
It's story time.
But in the ancient world, medieval world, this is the way they would teach. They would teach by basically kind of memorized answers. So an instructor comes in, and, he says, what's this? And then they have kind of a rote response that they have it memorized. And then he says, okay, well, what does that mean? And then they have a rote response for, hey, this is what it means. And that's actually what the catechism is. And in fact, and this is what I always think is funny, because whenever you receive that great and wonderful, fully hardbound, wonderful book, got the maroon cover on it, it's kind of, it's just beautiful. When we receive that great and wonderful book, we think that's the small catechism, when in reality, the small catechism is actually only the first 25 pages. The other, 280 pages is explanation.
Explanation for the small?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The explanation to the small. So you'll notice, on the cover of that wonderful edition, it says, Luther's Small Catechism and explanation. That and explanation is 90% of that book.
Right. That's now I relate to that because that's how sermons were at my church growing up, was about 5 minutes of here's the point. Now let's just kind of talk about that point for an hour and a half. We already know the point, don't do this, but let's just kind of keep talking about it.
Let's tease it out a little bit, shall we? But that brings up a big question. I mean, we can ask the question, how long should sermons be? And that's a solid question.
It is. And does the sermon time need to change depending on people's ability to stay focused?
Well, you see, now that's a good question too. That's a good question. Now, there's some tricks. There's some tricks to keep people's attention. I mean, hey, seminary wasn't good for nothing. They taught us stuff. So, so for instance, one of the things that we learned is that people's attention span, it can last anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes all the way up to 7 minutes, depending. And I'm sorry, parents, but it does depend a little bit on how much TV you watch. Basically, your attention span basically ebbs and flows based on what you do with your attention. So if you do a lot of things that require very little attention, your attention span will actually lower. And if you do things that require you to have a great focus and attention span, your attention span will actually increase. Now, again, I'm sure that somebody out there, I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, that's not,
That's not really how it is. Yeah.
But by and large, this is the way it is. So kids that watch TV tend to have a lower attention span. Now, that being said, it's not like it's set in stone. It's not like when they hit 18, they're just like, oh, I'm stuck with a 2-second attention span. No, they gradually will increase. And if they quit watching TV, believe it or not, their attention span will actually go up, even at older ages. But that being said, again, people's attention span can go from 2 to 3 minutes all the way to 7 minutes, depending. However, what's really interesting is much like a TV show, a TV show, an episode lasts, 21 minutes, commercials, 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. But yet, it tends to hold your focus.
Yeah.
Even though it seems like it's a singular story. But now here's the thing. Whenever you watch a TV show, watch how many times they flip the camera.
Yes.
every time they flip the camera, they are adjusting and resetting, and they are causing you to recenter your focus.
In addition to that, because I think we talked about the last one, I do a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I look up a lot of stuff about how to edit videos, make your retention better, all those sorts of things. Another thing that I add, and a lot of people do this, is when the camera angle switches or I zoom in, zoom out, I add a little sound effect that goes, whew.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there listening to it and your eyes might go off and then you hear, whew, and you go, oh, what? And then you look back at the screen again.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. I mean, really, there's so many little things to just like keep your attention going.
Yeah, and again, and you can do the same thing with sermons. Even if you move just a little bit, a lot of people think that if you move a bunch when you're preaching, that's the best. It's actually not true. Actually, if you move very little but you still move is the best. So let's say I hold still for 2 minutes and then I move my hand. Well, that emphasizes what I just did with my hand, but it also draws your attention to whatever I did with my hand. If I waved or something, it just draws attention to the fact that I moved my hand before I didn't move it. And you can do that with how you step, with how you move, with what words that you emphasize. But even in terms of the sermon, you can actually break your sermon into 3 or 4 sections. And so you'll hold people's attention for one section, and then right when they're starting to lose interest, you just switch to a different section.
Yeah.
You get slick enough with it, and people don't even realize it happened, but somehow they stay focused.
Right.
The really, really gifted people you would never know. People like me, if you really pay attention, you can figure it out usually.
And now that if anybody's listening to this, now they'll know to pay attention.
Now they'll know.
The Pastor Chris was starting to not pay attention, then I heard.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm going to do, right in the mic.
It works. It works.
It works, I tell you. But back to catechism.
Sorry, catechism. Enough about editing tricks and keeping people's attention.
Oh, man.
Now that we've kept their attention because we switched to a different
topic.
We're
switching back to a different topic.
Now we're going back.
We're going back. I can't do it right, but that's okay. But yeah, so with Luther's small catechism, though, it is definitely, we still have this idea of talking back and forth, and we still do memory work, right? We're trying to memorize things and all that kind of stuff. We obviously add a little bit more to it. We add more classwork to it. It's not just memory. Not that it was just memory back then, but it was, we definitely add a little bit in terms of classwork to it. I'd say the only negative about it is just that it does tend to pull it out of the parents' hands and make it like, oh, this is a church thing, and
right.
Whereas like the reality is like, no, the parents should still be teaching this stuff at home. Like this is
right. Yeah.
This should be a core of what we teach as we raise our children. But so that's kind of what it was for. Now what happened is like right around 1529, 1530, Martin Luther actually kind of went on a tour of several of the churches in the area. He actually didn't want to do it. If you can't notice, Luther didn't want to do a lot of things, but he did it, and he just thought it was in pitiful shape. Just he came back almost like depressed, like he was just terrible. And so he wrote the small catechism for the kids, and then most people are like, oh yeah, he wrote the large catechism for the pastors, and they're like, well, okay. And also the fathers, because it was the father's job to teach the kids. And so large catechism, which was basically an edited collection of his sermons, it was for the dads and pastors to help teach the catechism. And so there's kind of a little bit of your foundation in terms of where it comes from, a little bit of the history and how that all works. And yeah, so in sermons, right? His sermons were much longer than mine.
Yeah. So stop complaining. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Although there is this one letter. So Luther, there's one of Luther's works in English. Now, in German, there's like 119 volumes. In English, there's only like 60 or some 70. But there's this one volume called Table Talk where he kind of Luther used to have a lot of people over, just kind of chat, talk them up, talk to people, whatever. And some people actually started writing down some of the stuff he said. And that was a lot longer story. But one of the things, he gets upset at his preacher. Now, his preacher's name was Bugenhagen. There's
such
name,
a great name,
right? Great
Bugenhagen.
Name, a fantastic name. But anyway, he complains that his sermons were too long. Now, he's talking about like 2.5 hours. So, I mean,
he's like, we got to get to lunch, for goodness sakes.
Right? Right? But it is kind of funny because like Luther's like, you're preaching too long. Nobody can get anything out of that. It's just too long. So it's fun. I gotta find that. It's real short, but I gotta find it again. Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, you know, it is. I don't know. That's such an interesting topic, though. To me, at least to me, is the whole how long do you explain things? Like, you know, do you cut up? I mean, the whole like the TED Talks. If anybody's been on this, it's like a very formulaic way they do that. And when you decide to do a TED Talk, it's like on whatever topic you specialize in, they really run you through, okay, this is how you divide up your TED Talk and how you keep people's attention. And it's less than 20 minutes, and it's like right in this pocket. And, I mean, every time I watch one, I'm like, yeah, it's really well done. It's put together really nicely. It keeps your attention. You know, it
works.
Yeah,
it's a formula, but it works. I would say, you know, for the most part, it kind of goes like this. And this is, you know, this is something that I've been, you know, theorizing a bit and dabbling a little bit in the last couple of years, you know, when we're not doing drive-in services.
Right. And those, well, we'll get to that in church chatter.
Church chatter. But you know, by and large, I like to keep sermons right around 10 or 15 minutes. There are people that go longer, you know, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with a longer sermon as long as you can kind of stay, you know, disciplined and kind of get to your points and have purpose. But for me personally, just for my own personal style, the speed by which I speak, how I write, 10 or 15 minutes. Now, I will add a caveat. These sermons are designed for a brief explanation of a text and the proclamation of the gospel. Where's the law in the text? Where's the gospel in the text? And, you know, maybe digging in a little bit here and there. Now, again, of course, there's more to it than that. But at the same time, in a very, very basic front, that's kind of part of what our sermons are. However, the way we do sermons and the way we kind of sermonize in the modern world anticipates Bible class. And it is one of those things where you're seeing, as you see increasingly, people going less and less and less to Bible class. It does kind of strike me that maybe sermons need to get a little bit longer. And I mean, you know, again, I mean, how do you do that? What do you do? I mean, because that's in Luther's day, you know, his sermons were 45 minutes, sometimes an hour long. Okay, but they didn't have Bible class. Remember, Sunday school didn't come around until the 1800s. So Luther didn't have like, oh, let's do Bible study. He was like, no, you're gonna hear a sermon. It's gonna be an hour long. Yeah. But if you go through and start reading some of his sermons, it's very much like a lecture in places. You know, he's definitely kind of drawing out the text, and he's like, here, let's go. And so I think to some degree you can bring in the right environments, you can start bringing some of that back. And I think, you know, and we've tried it a few times, you know, at church. I've tried the whole, like, we'll kind of do like almost like a mini, what they call an exegetical. That is pulling out of the text, researching a text. It
would be safe to say sort of like a Bible study style.
Kind of a Bible study style. You know, open your Bibles, follow along. Here's what we're doing.
Which I don't know about other people, but I think that's really, you can tell that's your specialty. I think.
Well, it's what I get joy out of. That's for sure. I get a lot of joy out of it.
So I've always every time we've done that, I've been like, I like this.
Yeah. So I've tried to bring some of that in. You know, just 10 minutes here and then a 10 to 15 minute sermon. And so it ends up being 20, 25 minutes. We break it up. We usually put a song in the middle. Yeah. You know, and again, we haven't done that recently. Part of it was just because of all the stuff going on at church, which again, we're going to get to in a second. Church chatter.
That's in a bit. Stay tuned.
Oh man, I feel like I'm on an NPR show.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we got to talk a lot less.
Yes, we got to talk like this. Okay.
And then the segments cut very quickly to other segments, so you really don't really know what's going on because they're talking to an artist at 1 second who did a 24-hour protest in Times Square
over something,
and then they
Christmas trees.
Yeah, and then they talk to an author who wrote a book about something that has nothing to do with protesting in Central Park.
Yeah, the author. Oh man, NPR. I watched him. I listened to NPR for a while there. I just couldn't do it. I watched it for I keep saying I watched it. I listened to it for like a few weeks.
I can't do it either. I did an interview on NPR one time. Well,
what?
Like the local
Man,
NPR.
you really are famous.
I'm very, yeah. I did it for my band, and I feel bad. I probably shouldn't say this because I doubt this guy will ever be. But it was just one of those things where he really did not research anything about my band, and I sent him some songs, and every question he asked me was like hard to answer because it's like, you obviously don't know anything about my band because that question doesn't make any sense. But okay, I'm going to try to tie it around to make.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting times.
Interesting times. But yeah, I'm just saying, like an executive producer one week talks to you on your YouTube channel. Now you're getting interviewed by NPR. What are we going to find out about Casey next week?
I find stuff out every week.
Every week, we're going to find out just how famous Casey really is.
I like I say, this is a great time to be alive because you really could be. I mean, there could be a farmer in our church who could like start making YouTube videos, and they might be like super famous to farmers.
It's true.
Like they might get hundreds of thousands of subscribers being like, I love the way this guy talks about growing corn. It's amazing. And no one in our church would like know anything about it,
It's true. You ever watch like The Millennial Farmer?
No, and I've had people reference it.
He's always the one I think about.
Yeah.
And I think he's up in like Minnesota. But yeah, same difference.
But I would, if I was sitting next to him on a plane, I'd have no idea who he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of farmers probably in our church who would be like, oh my gosh, that's the Millennial Farmer.
Yeah, yeah.
That's this world. We have selective popularity, not selective, but like very compartmentalized popularity in certain sections.
That's very true.
Yeah, because you can go online and become a star in your field.
Yeah.
And no one knows who you are besides those people.
Well, and I was thinking about that the other day. I was talking to our new secretary, Mitzi, and one of the things I mentioned was our district president. Mm-hmm. Not our district president, but our synodical president.
Mm-hmm.
Like the big guy, right? The guy who's in charge of everything. And I'm like, there's like 10 people in our church that know who this man is. Like nobody else knows who he is.
That would be great if we walked around and said, like, well, you get $100 if you can name who this guy is.
Right?
Right now. His first name.
There would be some people that got him, but not many.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think there's a whole lot. By the way, just in case we're wondering, for clarification, he was just elected again. I think this is his 4th term, I believe. So not like U.S. politics. He's not limited. So this is his 4th term as our synodical president. His name is Matthew Harrison.
Matthew Harrison
is his name. And so, yeah, we'll save him for a talk. We'll talk about some of the synodical politics.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what?
Get him on the podcast.
That's right. We're going to call it.
Now we can interview.
We'll call it President Harrison.
Yeah.
President Reverend Dr. Harrison. Or is it Dr. President?
He's a doctor?
I think so.
Wow,
I think he's got his doctorate. That's a solid question. I don't know if he does or not. I think he does. But maybe he doesn't. I have to go look it up now. I don't know. So.
We've had presidents of our country who aren't even doctors. So, I mean, it's okay if,
Yeah.
If he's
it's okay if he's not. But he's definitely well researched. He's definitely well researched, this guy. Past President Dr. Reverend Harrison. I think I got the order right. I'm going to look it up later. Like, I got the order all wrong.
He's just got a lot of titles. So.
He's got a lot of titles. But anyway. But yeah, so he is our still elected president. So there you go. Look up his picture. You can look it up later. Oh man, is it time to get to church chatter already?
I think we're ready for church.
Oh, we're ready for church chatter. Okay. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think the big story on the church chatter is the same as it's always been. The church. Hey, the church. We're back. Got to be in church for the very first time this past Sunday. It was awesome.
It was great. Yeah.
Definitely had a few little hang-ups. If you saw the live stream, we were like Oompa Loompas up there. We were very orange.
Now, did that get fixed for the second service or no?
I think it did. I have not gone and checked the stream, but I think it did. But here's the funny thing. I'm not sure I saved my settings on the lights.
Oh.
So I'm going to have to do it again and then try to figure it out because I'm not so sure I saved it. I know I did it and tried to work it out, but I'm not sure I ever saved it. So that's obviously the big story. Church is back. We still don't have all the pews, but they're coming. They're coming. But we had enough. We had 91 people in early service.
Yeah.
Which, whenever you don't have all the pews, is packed.
It was packed.
It was packed. It was it wasn't quite standing room only, but boy, it felt like we were right there. We were so close.
No one used the dance floor?
No one used the dance floor.
Not during traditional service.
Nah, not during traditional service. But yeah, it was a great service. It was great to be back. Again, just like everything, we had some kinks we had to work out. We had the lectern mic that I'm still trying to get figured out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the right cable, the wrong whatever.
Yeah, we did for contemporary service. We very frantically had to set everything up.
Yes,
and we figured it out despite a few setbacks that were there, but we got it figured out. And got on our way.
And we're still. And again, look, this is a work in progress. We're still working on it. It's definitely still kind of going. They're still putting doors back on. I think they they might have all the doors back on at this point, but it's been fun to come in and to see everything kind of slowly get moved back. Yeah. A lot of stuff got moved out of the conference room. Today, actually, that was kind of a big thing today. Got people moving back and forth, and I'm just oh. So it's okay, slowly. People asking me about stuff. It's great. Definitely still got a little bit of work to do in terms of setting up. Like I said, got to change the video, got to get some mics kind of hooked back up. But that's the big story, right? Right now, it's we're back in church. I know it's midsummer. We're still waiting for Sunday school to start. That's not started yet. It's probably not going to start next week. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're getting closer and closer. I do think some adult Bible classes, I don't know if they're going to start this coming week or the week after, but I know some of the adult Bible classes are really looking forward to being back, getting back.
Yeah.
So just a lot of excitement and I think to some degree it's a little unexpected, and I don't mean that in terms of I didn't expect it to be exciting. I mean that we're middle of July. Mm-hmm. Middle of July is everybody's on vacation, and it kind of usually falls into a lull. But we don't have a lull right now because everybody's just so excited to be back in church, and so everybody's kind of geared up and ready to go, and it's really kind of exciting to see.
It is, it's really cool
to excite and see everybody kind of come in and go, oh, I really like the carpet, no, I really like the floor, and it's it's been really, really cool. Our trustees, again, I said that in church on Sunday, big thank you goes out, but if you guys just don't ever stop by church and don't realize, but these guys are just there all the time. Mm-hmm. And, they're putting their heart and soul into this stuff. And it's just man, you can't say enough to how much work and effort that they've put into making our church look and be the way it is. And it's just really fantastic. And again, it's so behind the scenes. You just don't see it. Don't see it.
Well, and it's cool. We've discussed, I grew up in a non-denominational church, which is more, they got rid of the pews, got the the foam seats and stuff, and it's really cool. Honestly, for me, it's really cool to see these pews being redone, mm-hmm. the floor being all redone. It's cool to see pride in the way the church is presented.
Yes,
I love that. I like that personally because that was kind of a. We just didn't really talk about that ever.
And so. I don't know. It depends on what kind of non-denom you were in, mm-hmm. but some of them were anti-decoration and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I know not all of them are, so I don't want to speak out of turn.
We did seasonal Christmas stuff, but it's just it's just more. It's about kind of more being modern and mm-hmm. everything. But to see, I don't know, it's cool to see the just old-fashioned pews that are been restained that look brand new. I've never really been to a church with pews that look brand new.
That's true, and they really do look nice.
They look great. Yeah,
I'm actually super excited for when they're all done and in there. I think it's going to look really nice, mm-hmm. and that's coming from the guy. Look, I'll be honest. I was like kind of in favor of maybe doing some chairs there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll be the first to be honest. That looks pretty nice.
It looks really nice, yeah.
And I'm kind of the same way with the carpet too. Like, I mean, I was like, they're doing red again, really? But then when I saw it, and I'll be honest, I still kind of in the back of my mind go, well, we could have done it different. But at the same time, I'm like,
yeah, it looks good though.
It actually looks really nice. It does, especially with the floor they chose out for underneath the pews, and the way that was all laid. It just does. It looks really sharp. Really sharp. And so I'm super excited for when it's all done, and to get all that kind of accomplished. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, that's kind of the big thing. Just kind of going on right now. We had Deb's retirement party.
Oh, right.
On Sunday. And so that was nice. We had our Stepping Forward in Faith, which is our blanket ceremony for all the seniors in high school that are moving on into, whether it's college or the workforce or trade school or whatever it happens to be, just kind of as they kind of step out of the being basically in the home with their parents versus kind of starting their venture of like life on their own.
Yep.
Which is very intimidating and scary at times.
Yeah.
So.
I'll also say, just as for the contemporary service, if anybody is a contemporary service attendee, that Curtis is back, who played electric guitar for a long time. I've actually never played with him until this Sunday, because when I came in, he had his job and everything. So
okay.
But when we were doing drive-in services, I think he retired from his job or something, but anyway, he's available now.
Know, yeah.
So he's, but he came back and played, so that was really cool to have him there. Besides that, in a couple weeks at Cornstalk Theater, there's a production of Titanic, and Eugene Lutz is going to be in that. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, Eugene's doing that, and so Eugene's been playing in the group as well.
Yeah,
for a while now.
Yeah.
So So if you like going to community theater, you should go out and see Eugene out there.
That's cool. I didn't know. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, my wife and I, when she her last concert, they gave us a gift, because she's going on to another school this next year, and they gave us tickets to Titanic at Cornstalk, and I was like, hey, we're going to go anyway, so that's great.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of like, we're in the middle of summer, not a lot of stuff's going on, but yet right now we just got a lot of stuff going on. Now, I know it's one of those things, like everybody kind of knows what's going on, but it's true. It's like we got a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of stuff. We got a lot. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out my words there. I tied myself into a knot, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's just very, very exciting to see kind of things move and progress and kind of get lined up like that. And of course, we're looking forward to August. We're almost there already. That's scary. It's scary to be so close to August, but yeah, already. I mean, I know kids don't want to hear this, but it's already time to start thinking about back to school.
Old Good Shepherd's door is going to be opening again.
That's right. Thank goodness we got out. I think they're waxing the floors right now. So
good.
So thank goodness we got out of there before they waxed the floors.
They've probably been waiting.
Yeah, I got back into church. So anyway. So just a lot of really awesome stuff. Got some stuff shifting and adjusting. We've obviously moved some choir stuff around. And the choir team has been diligently going through that, which means they're probably going to get excited about starting back up. So, and then this coming Sunday, we have a former vicar that's actually going to be joining us. And I've been pointing out in services, and I'll point it out again. He vicared before I was born. I'm just saying. August of 1980 to August of 1981. I was born in October of 1981. So anyway, I haven't yet met this man, but at the same time, I think he's probably a really great guy. I've spread some of his emails and looked at some of the bio and stuff, and he just seems like he's going to be a really good guy. I'm excited to meet him. I'm excited for the Sunday and for the 150th anniversary. Again, we had to kind of postpone it. We've been doing them in June, but we had to move this one to July so we'd have a church. Right. And so yeah, no, just lots of good stuff going on. Lots of good stuff. But I can't say there's anything really slipping through the cracks at this point. Like I said, I think everybody's...
Well, we paid enough money. There shouldn't be anything going through the cracks. Come on.
Oh, right on. I like it. I like it. Oh, man. But yeah. No, just just be patient with us as we kind of get everything kind of put back together. Thank you, everybody who actually finds us, who listens. This is kind of our podcast, kind of our, we're still kind of trying to figure some stuff out. But I think I like the direction it's heading, and just appreciate anybody that likes to would come in and listen and talk with us, and just the whole church thing, the whole church experience is great. So, so with that, I guess God's blessings to everybody, and we'll see you at church. If not, next time. Bye.
Bye.